I used to think I was overly paranoid. Double-checking locks, keeping the porch light on, never skipping my evening routine of checking each room before bed, even in a small town like Elliston, Indiana, where the most excitement you'd hear about was a cow blocking the county road. I didn't grow up in fear, but my instincts were sharp. And until last November, they had always been enough. My name is Rachel Dunn. I'm a pediatric nurse. I work night shifts most of the time, which means my schedule is the opposite of the world's. When I come home at 7 a.m., most people are heading out for work. When I get up around 3 in the afternoon, the sun is already fading in the fall sky. That Tuesday felt like any other. I was exhausted. A flu outbreak had swept through the hospital's children's wing, and we were working double time. I drove home, fog-brained, chugging lukewarm gas station coffee, and mentally calculating how many hours of sleep I could get before my next shift. I parked my car in the gravel drive, got out, and immediately noticed the front porch light was off. That was odd. I always left it on. Maybe the bulb had died. The second thing I noticed was the smell, faint but distinct, like stale sweat. Not mine. Not from outside either. But I was too tired to think straight. I unlocked the front door, kicked off my shoes, and trudged inside. I lived alone. No roommates. No boyfriend. My parents were 2 states away in Michigan. It was just me in a little one-story house my aunt left me when she passed. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I dropped my keys into the ceramic bowl near the entry, the sound echoing slightly. The house felt off. Not cold, not hot. Just still. Too still. I walked to the kitchen to pour a glass of water. There was a plate in the sink. A plate I didn't use. A fork with dried ketchup on it. I stood frozen, staring at the sink. Then I told myself what anyone would. Maybe I left it out earlier. Maybe I forgot. Except I didn't eat at home that night. I'd taken a sandwich from the vending machine. I turned and checked the back door. Still locked. I went room to room, flipping on lights. Living room, nothing. Bathroom, empty. Hall closet, just coats and towels. Office, papers where I left them. Everything seemed normal until I reached my bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I hadn't left it like that. I pushed it open slowly. There, beneath my comforter, was the shape of someone sleeping. My blood ran cold. My first instinct wasn't to scream. It was to run. I backed away from the door, slowly, quietly, heart thudding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I picked up my phone from the kitchen counter and ducked behind the wall near the laundry room. I called 911. The dispatcher answered immediately. I told her in a hushed voice that someone was in my bed, that I had no idea who, that I lived alone. "Are you in a safe place right now?" she asked. I whispered yes. "Do not confront the person," she said firmly. "Officers are on their way. Stay on the line with me." Minutes passed like hours. I didn't hear movement from the bedroom, but I also didn't dare go near it again. I stared at the hallway, phone pressed to my ear, breathing quietly, every light in the house now feeling too dim. Then I heard a soft creak, the kind a bed makes when someone rolls over. I stifled a gasp. The dispatcher asked, "Did you hear something?" "Yes," I whispered. "They moved." She told me help was 3 minutes away. Those 3 minutes felt like 3 lifetimes. My legs were shaking. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Then headlights swept across the front window. Police. They knocked once, then twice, and I darted to the front door and let them in. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female. I explained everything, pointed toward the hallway. They told me to stay back. Guns drawn, they crept toward the bedroom. I listened from around the corner. Then came a shout. "Get up. Show us your hands." I heard scuffling, thuds, and a groan. They dragged him out less than a minute later. A man. Maybe mid-30s. Dirty blonde hair, beard, wearing a t-shirt that wasn't his and pajama pants that definitely weren't mine. He looked dazed. Confused. Not drunk. Not high. Just blank. "Do you know this man?" one of the officers asked me. I shook my head violently. No. I've never seen him before in my life. The man didn't speak. He just stared at me. Not menacingly. Almost like he didn't know where he was. They cuffed him, read him his rights, and took him out to the squad car. I stood there, shaking, heart pounding in my chest. Later, they searched the house more thoroughly and found that the screen to my bedroom window had been cut. The lock, which I thought was always latched, had been unfastened, likely from a previous visit. The cops thought he'd been in the house before. Maybe cased it. Maybe snuck in while I was at work. Maybe even more than once. The idea made my skin crawl. I couldn't sleep there that day. Or that night. I stayed at a friend's place, wide awake, watching the ceiling. That man's face etched into my mind. But that was just the beginning. The police said they'd update me, but days passed with nothing. No name. No background. Just a vague report that he was being held for trespassing and breaking and entering. Nothing about who he was or why he'd chosen my house. I tried to move on. Changed the locks. Replaced the windows. Got a security system. Started keeping a bat beside my bed. But the weirdness didn't stop. 1 week later, I came home from work, flipped on the lights, and found a note on my kitchen table. It wasn't handwritten. It was printed. Clean font. Centered on the page. It said, "You didn't see me the first time?" I screamed. Called the police. Again. They searched the place top to bottom. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. No DNA. The locks were intact. Windows untouched. But someone had been inside. Again. This time I didn't just stay at a friend's. I checked into a hotel. Left the lights on all night. Slept with the TV playing softly, like white noise, trying to convince myself that this was just some horrible, twisted prank. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Whoever that man was, he hadn't picked my house at random. And he wasn't done. The third time, I almost didn't survive. It was a Friday. I'd taken the night off. I was trying to reclaim my life. Trying to believe the cops when they told me he was behind bars and the letter was probably unrelated. I'd just finished watching a movie on the couch when I heard something. Not outside. Inside. A soft click. Like a door closing gently. I muted the TV. Held my breath. Waited. Then there it was again. A creak. Near the bathroom this time. I picked up the bat from beside the couch. My phone was on the charger across the room. Of course it was. I crept toward the hallway. Another soft sound. This time from the spare bedroom. The guest room I never used. The door was shut. I hadn't shut it. I pressed my ear to the wood. Silence. I reached for the knob. Bat raised. I flung the door open. Empty. Nothing inside but the bed, the dresser, and a few storage boxes. I backed away, trembling. Then I heard it. A breath. Behind me, I spun and saw him. Standing in the hallway. The same man. Same blank expression. No shoes. Dirty socks. Wearing my hoodie this time. My hoodie. I screamed and swung the bat with every ounce of strength I had. It connected with his shoulder. He grunted and stumbled but didn't fall. I ran. Out the front door. Into the night. Banged on my neighbor's door. Lights flipped on. Mr. Halverson answered in his robe, confused and alarmed. I told him to call 911. Told him someone was in my house again. By the time the police arrived, the man was gone. But they found new fingerprints. And this time, they finally got a match. His name was Tyler Kane. He'd been discharged from a psychiatric facility 8 months prior. Lived in another state. Had no known ties to Elliston. But he'd once been a janitor at a hospital in Michigan. The same one I'd interned at during college. They think he saw me then. Became obsessed. Tracked me. Moved nearby. Stalked me. Invaded my home. Slept in my bed. And I never even knew. But the story doesn't end there. Because what I found next proved that this went far deeper than just a home invasion. It was personal. And I was never supposed to find out. After the second break-in, Tyler Kane was officially arrested. They transferred him to a mental health facility for further psychiatric evaluation, this time under tighter security. The detective assigned to my case, Detective Sandra Morgan, was a no-nonsense, sharp-eyed woman in her early 50s. She called me into the station the following week, said there were some developments. I sat across from her in a dimly lit room, the sound of a humming light overhead filling the silences between us. "Rachel," she said, folding her hands on the table. "We got access to Tyler's belongings from his old residence. Some of the things we found, well, you need to see them." She slid a manila folder across the table. I opened it. Inside were printed photos of me, blurry, long-distance shots from outside my old hospital, one from the parking lot of a grocery store I hadn't even remembered visiting. There were receipts, too, copies of my online orders, pizza deliveries, a sticky note that read, "Blue scrub top, 3:15 p.m., coffee black." I felt sick. "He was documenting your routine," Sandra said. "For years." I shook my head. "How did he even find me?" "I moved to Elliston 2 years ago." "He must have followed you. We think he was sleeping in your house long before the first incident." I looked up at her, horrified. "What do you mean?" "He had keys. Duplicates. There's no sign of forced entry the first few times he came in. He either stole them from you at some point, or he made copies during one of his visits." I swallowed hard. "So you're saying he was living there?" "While I was working night shifts." Sandra didn't answer at first. Then she said quietly, "That's the working theory." That night, I couldn't go back to my house. Not even to grab clothes. A wave of paranoia washed over me every time I thought of that comforter, perfectly made, while a stranger lay beneath it. I stayed with my coworker, Erin, a fellow nurse who insisted I sleep in her guest room for as long as I needed. She was the only reason I remained sane during those first few days. She made me tea, kept me company, slept on the couch outside my room, just in case. And yet, I still felt watched. One evening, around 11 p.m., we were sitting in Erin's living room watching a rerun of a medical drama when I heard my phone buzz. A text. It was from a blocked number. It said, "The guest room suits you." I froze. Erin noticed my expression. "What is it?" I handed her the phone. Her face drained of color. We checked the security cam she had set up near her front door. No footage. Whoever it was hadn't come to the door. But the window in the guest room? It had a clear view of me lying on the bed. We called the police, again. They came, took the phone, traced the number. It was a burner. No leads. That night, I locked the guest room window, closed the blinds, slept on the floor beside Erin's couch instead. And even then, I barely closed my eyes. 2 days later, Detective Sandra called me again. "Rachel," she said, her voice tense. "There's something you need to know. We pulled Tyler's psychiatric file. There's more to this story than we initially thought." She asked me to come in. When I arrived, she handed me a file. Inside were dozens of pages, medical records, notes from doctors, drawings, letters, and a name. Melissa Dunning. I blinked. "Who's that?" Sandra looked grave. "His sister. Deceased." I flipped through the pages until I found a police report. Melissa had gone missing 15 years ago. Never found. She was 24. Blonde. Blue eyes. Looked eerily like me. Sandra explained that Tyler had been the last one to see her. He'd always insisted she was taken. That she'd run away to be free of the experiments. His mental deterioration began not long after. "He's been looking for her," Sandra said. "Or someone who reminds him of her." My stomach turned. "So, he thinks I'm Melissa?" "We're not sure if he truly believes that," Sandra said carefully. "Or if you just fit the profile. But we do know this, his obsession isn't random." My mind spun. A man I didn't know had built a fantasy around me, projected his missing sister onto me, stalked me, broken into my home, and now was still watching. Even with him locked away, the messages hadn't stopped. Which could only mean one thing. He wasn't working alone. The thought chilled me to the core. Was someone else helping him? Someone who knew where I lived, where I moved. Someone with access? Erin insisted I take time off work. Said she'd cover for me, even lend me her car if I wanted to get out of town for a while. And I almost did, until I got one final message. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a letter, left on my windshield in the hospital parking lot. No envelope, just a folded page. Typed again, perfectly centered. She was taken from me. You won't be. Beneath it, a hand-drawn picture. Stick figures. One male, one female. The male had a bat in his hand. The female was tied to a chair. Erin and I turned everything over to the police. They increased patrols around her house, monitored phone traffic, even checked Tyler's visitors list at the facility. But still nothing. And then, 2 nights later, Erin vanished. I came home from a walk, needed fresh air, some space, and found the front door wide open. Her keys were still on the kitchen counter. Her phone was buzzing in the living room. And in the guest room was a single item. My hoodie, the same one Tyler had worn during the second break-in. I called 911, heart in my throat, panic exploding in my chest. Police arrived within minutes. They declared it an abduction. Said there were no signs of struggle. No fingerprints. Nothing to go on. But I knew who it was. It had to be Tyler. Somehow he'd escaped. Or someone got her for him. That night, I received a final message. It was a video. Grainy. Low resolution. Erin, tied to a chair in a dark room. She looked terrified. Disoriented. And then Tyler appeared in the frame. Smiling. Rachel, he said. She's a placeholder. You're the one I want. Come find me. The video cut to black. That was it. No address. No threats. Just an invitation. The police were baffled. But I wasn't. Because there was one place no one had searched. The house my aunt had left me, the one I lived in when this all started, had a cellar. A root cellar beneath the floorboards in the laundry room. I'd never opened it. Had no reason to. But I remembered Tyler's footprints in the dust near that spot once, the first time the cops had come. They dismissed it. Said it led nowhere. But that night, I went back. Armed. I didn't tell the cops. Didn't want to risk losing the chance. I pried up the floorboards. Found the hatch. Opened it. A metal ladder led into darkness. I descended, flashlight trembling in my hand. The air was damp. Cold. Reeked of mold and old wood. But then I saw it. A door. It wasn't part of the original design. New wood. Clean handle. I opened it. Inside was a small room. A cot. A lantern. Drawings on the wall. Names. Dates. Photographs of me. Of Erin. Of Melissa. And then I heard a sound. A whimper. I turned. Heart in my throat. Erin. Tied up. Gagged. Eyes wide. I rushed to her, cut her free. She sobbed, clinging to me. And then, a voice behind me. I knew you'd come. Tyler. I turned slowly. He stood in the doorway, calm, serene. You're not her, he said. But you feel like her. I held up the bat. Back away, Tyler. He stepped closer. You came to me. That means something. I swung. The bat connected with his arm, then his side. He screamed. Lunged. We fought in the cramped space, shadows flickering against the stone walls. Erin screamed behind me. I hit him again. And again. Finally, he collapsed. Unconscious. Maybe worse. I dragged Erin out. Up the ladder. Into the night. Police arrived minutes later. Took him into custody. This time, there was no soft facility. No psychiatric reprieve. They found enough evidence in that underground room to charge him with kidnapping, stalking, breaking and entering, and attempted murder. Tyler Kane will never be free again. But even now, months later, I check the locks. I never leave my windows open. I don't trust silence. Because when someone you don't know decides you belong to them, it's not just your home they invade. It's your mind, your sense of safety, your sleep. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, and I wonder, what if one day I come home and someone's sleeping in my bed again?